Today, that exit ramp from poverty is cut off. I went into a store about 6 months ago, and I was wearing a steelworker shirt. And the clerk was an African-American man about my age. And he said, "Steelworkers." He says, "I remember that. I used to be a steelworker." That was back in the day where a man could go get a job and provide for his family. He said, but that day's over in America. And the tragedy is, for millions of Americans, that day is over in America. They can't even imagine being able to provide for their family. They can't even imagine just having one job. They can't imagine having evenings at homes with their kids. Not your members, but for the 85% of the rest of Americans who aren't in unions. That's what life has become for us. A corrupt corporate culture has done all it could to deny workers the freedom to form unions and bargain collectively. You know, I do a lot of debates about the Employee Free Choice Act, and they always say two things. One is the Employee Free Choice Act will destroy the secret ballot. It's a lie. You all know that. It's a lie. It won't. I can explain why it won't if you want me to. The second thing they say is, well, if you allow people to card check, then the union organizers are going to intimidate the workers. And I say, you want to talk about intimidation? 29,000 workers last year were illegally retaliated against for exercising legally protected union activities. 29,000. 30,000 the year before. 20,000 workers a year for 15 years in the United States of America were illegally retaliated against for exercising legally protected union activities. 1 in 5 union activists on every organizing campaign is fired. 40% of the workers who get a union, who jump through all the hoops and go over all the barriers to finally get a union, never get a first contract. In 1935, there were 1 million workers in America in unions. And the middle class was this narrow band of large farmers and small shopkeepers. But if you worked for a living, you lived in poverty. And you died in poverty. If you worked for a living. You worked 5.5, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and you lived in poverty. You had nothing to look forward to. And then workers got the right to form unions because of a Democratic president, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate. By the time they got all through working it through the courts by 1937, workers had the right to form unions and bargain collectively. And in the next 18 years, 12 million workers went out and formed unions. And they created the modern American labor movement. They created the modern American middle class and the American dream. And we became the first country in the history of the world where if you work by the hardness of your hand, the sweat of your brow, or the strength of your back, you could aspire to raise your kids in the comfort and the decency and the dignity of the middle class. And we were proud of it. The whole country was proud of it. Harry Truman, the president, was proud of it after FDR passed away. And after World War II, when we decided to rebuild Europe and rebuild Japan, we sent all that money in the Marshall Plan over there, but we also sent union organizers. And we said, if you ever want to stop, if you want to stop totalitarianism from ever coming back, if you want to make sure fascism never comes back in Italy, if you want to make sure that Nazism never comes back in Germany or Austria, you want to make sure imperialism never comes back in Japan, you want to stop communism, then build strong worker organizations. A strong labor movement always has been and always will be the best defense of democracy. And we were proud of it in those days. And we seem to have forgotten it now. But now, brothers and sisters, all of this and more is why we have to pass the Employee Free Choice Act. All of this and more is why we need that gentle pressure on Senators Webb and Warner. I mean gentle. I work for you. I believe in you. I need your vote. And I'm going to work for you again, but we need your vote. It will do 3 simple things, and I'm going to be very brief. 1, real penalties on employers who violate the law. Currently, the only penalty for 95% of all unfair labor practices is post a notice about the side of one of those frames over there saying I won't do it again. Even if you fire somebody for union activity, the only penalty is to put them back at work with back pay, minus what they made on another job when they went out to try to keep their families paid. So under the Employee Free Choice Act, it says, boss man, you're going to violate the law, you're going to pay $20,000 civil fines, ability for us to go to court and get injunctions against their illegal behavior, triple damage back pay when you fire somebody for union activity. 2, 40% of workers who get a union never get a first contract. Employee Free Choice Act says we're going to do away with that. You got 3 months, 90 days, boss, to get to a first contract. Can't get to a first contract then the workers can go get mediation. Then you got another month. So you got 4 months to get to a first contract. If you can't get to a first contract by then the workers can go get arbitration. And finally it says you can join a union the same way you volunteer to serve your country and go to Afghanistan or Iraq. Same way the boss joins the Chamber of Commerce, the same way my son joined the Little League. Sign your name. If it's good enough to sign your name to serve this country, and to risk your life in Iraq or Afghanistan, it by God ought to be good enough to form a union.